Every fisherman will tell you that no trip out to the open sea is like any other. The murky waters still hold secrets and mysteries waiting to be uncovered. You never know what strange objects or creatures might suddenly appear in the fishing nets. The open oceans are among the most challenging environments. They can be as calm as a quiet night in a small village, or as rough and dangerous as the streets of Detroit. That's why most fishermen feel a sense of relief when, after several long and hard days at sea, they can finally return to land. But for the crew aboard the Golden Delight, the journey home took an unexpected turn that would change their lives forever. The crew of the Golden Delight had been at sea for nearly 2 weeks, longer than planned. The first few days had been disappointing, as they had caught very few fish. Returning to port without a significant haul would have cost them dearly, as the income of fishermen depends entirely on their catch. The harsh reality of overfishing had made fishing grounds increasingly unreliable. Determined to make up for their losses, the captain decided to sail further out into areas less frequented by other fishing boats. After a long journey, they reached a vast stretch of open water where no competition was in sight. When the first net was cast, hope began to grow. It didn't take long before they hauled it in with great anticipation. Their efforts paid off. The net was brimming with an incredible amount of fish. The crew was overjoyed. They had never caught so many fish on a single trip before. Their storage hold was completely full after just 2 days. The joy on board was boundless. Not only had they caught fish, but they also had the luck of encountering some fascinating marine creatures up close. Particularly impressive were the majestic whales that moved through the waves alongside their ship. The crew savored this rare moment of peace and connection with nature before setting off on their journey home. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. But their luck didn't last long. On their way back, they encountered dangerous waters. A strong storm rolled in, making it nearly impossible to stick to the direct route to the harbor. The captain decided to take a detour to avoid the worst of the storm, which meant sailing in the opposite direction for a while. The decision was risky but necessary. The storm was faster than expected, and the sea became increasingly unpredictable. High waves crashed against the ship, and the crew had to use all their experience to keep the boat stable. The captain, exhausted and filled with worry, guided the crew with a calm but firm voice. They knew that any wrong move could have fatal consequences. After hours of tension and hard work, they managed to navigate around the storm, but the ordeal took its toll. The crew was exhausted, and their supplies of fresh water and food were running low. Fortunately, they had enough fish on board to sustain themselves, and the rainwater they collected helped quench their thirst. When the storm finally subsided, a crew member spotted something unusual in the water, a large metallic object partially protruding from the waves. Hesitantly, they approached to investigate. What they found surpassed their imagination. An ancient shipwreck that had apparently lain on the ocean floor for decades, if not longer. Curiosity piqued, the crew decided to explore the wreck more closely. Using improvised tools and diving equipment, some of the crew members got to work. What they brought on board were not only valuable artifacts, but also clues to a story that had yet to be told. As the sun slowly set on the horizon, the crew knew their journey was far from over. What had started as a simple fishing trip had turned into an adventure that would forever change their perspective on the sea. Over the next few days, they continued to examine the wreck. It turned out to be a ship from the late 19th century. The rotting wooden structure and rusted metal parts spoke of a long-gone era. Among the recovered items were old coins, ceramics, and a logbook that, remarkably, was still legible. The logbook told of a trade route the ship had once sailed and included a final entry with a dramatic warning of an impending storm. Was this the same storm that had destroyed the ship? The crew was fascinated but also concerned. The discovery was significant, but time was running out. They needed to reach the harbor before the fish on board spoiled. After a heated discussion, they decided to mark the wreck and record its coordinates to return later. The captain made the decision to continue the journey home, and the crew prepared to set course for the harbor. The return journey was no less challenging. A sudden engine failure forced the crew to make emergency repairs at sea. For hours, they worked under difficult conditions to fix the problem. Finally, they managed to get the engine running again. The relief was immense, but they were still far from the harbor. During the final days at sea, the mood on board grew increasingly tense. Exhaustion, worry about the fish, and the uncertain future weighed heavily on the crew. But the sight of the coastline appearing on the horizon sparked collective jubilation. After weeks at sea, they had made it. When they reached the harbor, they were met with curious glances. News of their discovery spread quickly, and soon experts arrived to examine the artifacts. The find proved to be significant for the maritime history of the region, and the crew of the Golden Delight was celebrated for their courage and discovery. The crew returned as heroes. Their catch ensured their survival, and the shipwreck discovery opened up new opportunities. Some explored the wreck further, while others continued their fishing careers. The adventure of the Golden Delight highlighted the challenges and wonders of the sea, a story of courage, determination, and curiosity. The sea remained as it always was, full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. The rest of the crew spent their days playing cards or dice, or gazing out at the endless sea. With a bit of luck, they sometimes spotted marine life near the surface. But this was rare. They were bored and could no longer stand the smell of fish. Fortunately, if the captain was right, they were only about a day away from the coast. They still couldn't see land, but earlier they had spotted a few boats in the distance. They considered approaching them to ask for water, but decided against it, as it would only delay them further, and they couldn't be sure if the other crews would be willing to share. Determined not to be delayed any longer, they steered straight for the shore. Suddenly, one of the most beautiful sights appeared before their eyes. Land rose in the distance over the horizon. The crew was thrilled and seemed to get a burst of energy. They shouted and celebrated as if they had won the lottery. As the entire crew cheered, one member couldn't take his eyes off the land. The thought of finally returning home filled him with joy. But then he noticed something in the water, something moving slowly on the surface. It took him a moment to realize what it was: a beautiful, fully grown dolphin. Although dolphins weren't uncommon, and they had already seen several on their journey, he immediately noticed that something was wrong with this one. The dolphin seemed to have trouble moving or diving back down. It only took a moment for the crew member to recognize the problem. The dolphin's tail was caught in a large, heavy fishing net. The net had likely been discarded by another fishing boat, or might have even been their own. The crew of the Golden Delight had already lost some of their nets and other equipment to the unpredictable forces of the ocean. The dolphin looked extremely exhausted, as it had probably been dragging the heavy net for some time. It had clearly been trapped long enough to be separated from its pod, as no other dolphins were in sight. The crew member immediately alerted the others. It took a while for them to understand what was happening, as they were still in a celebratory mood. When the crew finally realized that the dolphin needed their help, they saw that it had already swum past them and was now moving away in the opposite direction. A quick decision was needed. Should they turn the boat around and try to save the dolphin, or should they continue their journey and finally return home? The decision was made within seconds. Everyone agreed that they had to help the dolphin. Some might think that fishermen, who make their living by catching marine life, have no regard for the creatures of the sea, but the opposite is true. They value and respect the sea and all life within it, knowing that without the ocean's resources, they couldn't survive. The captain gave the order to turn the boat around. The crew prepared everything they would need to help the dolphin. They had no idea how difficult it would be to capture and free it from the net, but they were determined to try. It took a while to catch up to the dolphin. It seemed to sense that they wanted to help, as it stayed near the boat and moved more slowly as they approached. With skill and teamwork, the crew managed to carefully capture the dolphin and bring it alongside the ship. They worked quickly and efficiently to cut through the heavy net and free it. The dolphin remained surprisingly calm, as if it knew they were trying to help. When they removed the last piece of the net, it seemed almost grateful, lingering quietly beside the boat for a moment before finally swimming away. The crew cheered as the dolphin dove into freedom. It was a moment of triumph that bonded them all. They knew they had made the right decision, even if it meant delaying their journey home. With a new sense of pride and satisfaction, they continued their journey. When they finally reached the shore, they not only had a successful fishing trip behind them, but also the knowledge that they had done something good. This day would remain in their memories forever. It's somewhat similar to a farmer and his livestock. He loves all his animals, even though he knows he may have to kill some of them eventually. The captain quickly turned the boat around and began pursuing the dolphin. They saw that it tried to dive several times but resurfaced almost immediately, likely unable to move downward because its tail was caught in the net. The boat quickly caught up to the dolphin. At first, the animal tried to escape with sudden changes in direction, but after a few attempts, it simply stayed calm beside the boat. The fishermen wondered if the creature realized they wanted to help, or if it was simply too exhausted to swim away. Since they had no way to bring the dolphin directly on board, they cast their own net. To their surprise, they managed to capture the dolphin on the first try. Carefully, they pulled the obviously exhausted creature on board without much struggle or protest. Once the dolphin was safely on the deck, they first freed it from their own net, then turned their attention to the net still wrapped around its tail. Two of the stronger crew members held the animal relatively still, while the deckhand took his knife and carefully began cutting away the net. After a few precise cuts, the threads loosened and the entire net fell away. The crew quickly examined the dolphin to ensure it had no other injuries. Aside from some superficial scratches, it seemed to be in good condition. The dolphin began to appear more lively once its tail fin was completely free. The crew members opened the railing on the side of the deck and, with a little pushing and shoving, returned the dolphin to the water. Almost as soon as it was back in the sea, it dove deep and disappeared from sight. Satisfied with their work, they closed the railing and began cleaning up the deck while the captain set the course back toward land. Although the rescue operation had likely extended their journey by at least 5 to 6 hours, everyone on board was convinced they had made the right decision. On the way back to shore, something amazing happened. Suddenly, they saw a dolphin jumping beside the boat. The crew was almost certain it was the same dolphin they had just rescued. Given the intelligence of these animals, they thought it was likely that this was its way of thanking the crew for their help. The sight filled everyone with pride and joy. After the long and exhausting journey, they finally reached land. They not only had an impressive amount of fish on board, which would secure them a well-deserved paycheck, but also a great story and an unforgettable experience to tell. The day ended with a special sense of satisfaction that went beyond material success, and the crew would remember this moment for a long time. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Thanks to our valued viewers, we continue to improve every day. Please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up.